This is a video about Sri Aurobindo's concept of the ego as explained in The Life Divine in the Synthesis of Yoga and the importance of karma yoga. Good morning, this is a video on the ego. How Sri Aurobindo sees the ego in his works The Life Divine in the Synthesis of Yoga and about the importance of karma yoga. Thank you for liking and subscribing. In the last video, we have been introduced to Maya, the grand illusion, which is really a necessary part of the great creatrix itself. Now, before we continue with the book, The Life Divine, it is time to have a look at the ego, the most overused word and concept of spirituality. The 14th chapter is called Supermind as Creator, and we will get to it. But I think since we have had a look at Maya now, it is important to define the word ego, because it crops up all the time, and it is only explained in later chapters. I have gleaned and gathered what Sri Aurobindo has to say about the ego in two of his main works, The Life Divine and the Synthesis of Yoga. And let's see what it has to say about it. Just as Maya is not just a delusion or ignorance, but a shaping and cutting tool of creation and manifestation in order to help create beings who forget that they really are part of the whole. The ego is also more than it seems. In most spiritual traditions, it is either being taught that the ego does not exist or that it is the enemy to be conquered or let go of, meaning ignored. For Sri Aurobindo, this is all too simple. The ego does exist and even fulfills its role admirably. There is no need to destroy it, yet it, like the normal thinking and sensing faculties, is not the right tool for enlightenment, perfection, or freedom. The ego is like the surface of a ball. And what we are after is the much larger inside of the ball. When we see another human being, for example, we see only their skin and hair and clothes, their eyes, and we can smell them and hear them. But we do not know what they look like inside, what makes them alive, what makes them feel and think and move, which is much more interesting. Not just the superficial looks, no matter how beautiful or attractive. The screen, take another example, is not the computer, nor is the keyboard the computer. It is much more interesting to look at the hardware and software inside of the thing. And it is the same with the ego. The ego is a surface tool, designed to interact and to focus on that which Maya tells us is not us. So there is a connection to Maya, but they are not the same. Maya tells the ego that it is a separate being, and the ego is caught in this trap of ignorance and amnesia, believes what Maya tells it, and seeks to protect it from outside threats. It uses our most crude emotions, thoughts, senses for this purpose. And it is in constant fight or flight mode. And when it doesn't know what to do to self-protect, it goes into a default mode or freeze mode, or in the worst case, into self-destruct mode. But it does its job. It does exist, and it is not us. It is part of me and you and all of us, but the smallest part, the most superficial part. There's a vast deep ocean beneath the opaque surface and its waves. Now, the ego is like the waves of the ocean. The trouble that is blamed on the ego stems from letting the ego do everything, not only that for which it is meant, but we let the willful child run the show instead of the adult. Instead of focusing on the surface and away from what we perceive as me, the trick is to focus inwards. One method, by the way, is to allow boredom. Watch my video about boredom. And another is, for example, to allow to feel old pain. Watch my video about trauma. Both links below in the description. There are many ways to learn not to take the ego seriously anymore. To accept it and let it do its job, but to recognize that it is not all we are. The real aim is not to destroy it, but to assign it its proper place. It is just the autopilot, and it is time for the real pilot to take charge of the aircraft. And now, here it becomes very interesting. The real pilot is not some sort of real or higher self with a capital S, because the real pilot is the divine, the absolute. And this is where the importance of karma yoga comes into Sri Aurobindo's teachings. His integral yoga is not only karma yoga, but karma yoga is a very important part of it. What is necessary to look inside and find a better source of direction, purpose and knowledge is surrender. The main rule in Sri Aurobindo's ashrams and Auroville is that you have to be a, quote, willing servitor of the divine consciousness. A willing servitor of the divine consciousness. What the heck does this mean? It means to devote all you are doing to a higher purpose than your own personal or family gain. And this higher purpose is the will and the plan of the Absolute. This is not as easy as it sounds. Try it. Everything in you will rebel against it. Well, almost everything. There's a part of you who's waiting for this. Now, you cannot feel or hear the plan of the Absolute now if you focus on the so-called outside, because it is being announced inside. But there you can hear it all the time if you use the right pair of ears. And these ears are asleep from long disuse. But these ears wake up with surrender, with complete surrender. This is the tricky part, the complete surrender. This complete surrender demands the utmost courage. Remember my UG video, The Courage to Stand Alone. It demands the utmost courage because there is no guarantee. If there was a guarantee, it would not be a true surrender. You have to trust and jump first and then see where it leads to. Then see what happens. If it leads to death or to a life under the bridge, who knows? It doesn't, but you don't really know that. The ego is mistrustful because it is a guardian. The ego is like a suit of armor. That is its job. And it cannot want to jump. The ego cannot want to get rid of itself. But try running or jumping with a medieval steel plate suit of armor. It's nigh impossible. If you want to run, if you want to jump, you have to cast away your protection and jump into the unknown unprotected, not knowing what will happen. This is letting go of the ego, not trying to destroy it or ignore it or to pretend it's not there. Leave it be. It has its purpose for some things, but for most things it's the wrong tool. It's like a hammer or a knife. Can you do and fix everything with a hammer or a knife? No. So don't. Look for the big toolbox inside of you. It's all there. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you for all my Patreons and to all my Patreons. Thanks for joining me on Facebook and Patreon, for liking, subscribing and sharing the videos with your friends, and see you soon with the 14th chapter of the Life Divine.